This episode is presented by State Farm. Life's full of decisions, big and small, and sometimes you make movie ones you can really stand behind. For example, I was wise enough to stick around through the mid-credits during Ryan Coogler's Sinners, and unlike my co-host Amanda, I got to see a very special sequence with the great Buddy Guy, among other things. State Farm gets it. Making confident choices can make all the difference. That's why with the State Farm Personal Price Plan, you can choose the right amount of coverage to help create an affordable price for you. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state. I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is 25 for 25, a big picture special conversation show about the Royal Tenenbaums. Anybody interested in grabbing a couple of burgers and hitting the cemetery? Okay, so this is our Wes Anderson selection.
Here we are.
This is Wes's third feature film. It's his first film in the 21st century. He wrote and directed this movie, co-written with Owen Wilson, his early partner in writing. It stars Gene Hackman, Angelica Houston, Danny Glover, Ben Stiller, Luke Wilson, Gwyneth Paltrow, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Kumar Pallana, Seymour Cassell, and the voice of Alec Baldwin. Okay, let's just begin with why this Wes Anderson movie. I think that's probably our most relevant entry point, because this, I don't know that we debated it a lot, but you could make the case for 6 other movies.
You could.
For the West spot.
And I do think that you tried a little. And this is what happens every time you and I talk about Wes Anderson, is that you kind of push a needle and you're like, but what about Moonrise Kingdom? And like, what about Rushmore? And what about Bottle Rocket and Grand Budapest? And, on and on and on and on. And those are all really valid points, except for the fact that Bottle Rocket and Rushmore were not eligible for this, having been done in the last century.
Rushmore versus Tenenbaums would have been a war between us, because that is still my favorite.
It was a war when we ranked the Wes Anderson films on this very podcast. And then, as now, I won. Because at the end of the day, it's Tenenbaums. It's Tenenbaums because of where it is in the Wes Anderson oeuvre, if you will. And what it represents of the development and also the future of his career. I think it's Tenenbaums in terms of mass popularity. It is in some ways it's the most mainstream, certainly the most Halloween costumes, but we don't always have to fight that, Sometimes that's a sign of something catching with it's his calling card, and it sets the intention for the rest of the century. So, and it is also just lights out amazing. Yeah, it's a wonderful movie. I think the best case that could have been made would have been for Grand Budapest Hotel. Sure. Because that was the film that was the sort of arrival of Wes as a part of the institutional movie history, because it was such a financial success and Academy Award recognized. And this movie is the bridge, him walking across the bridge from independent filmmaker to mainstream studio filmmaker. Right. And Scott Rudin is producing his movies, and there is a higher level of celebrity appearing in these films. It's not just this troupe of friends that he's organizing out of Texas. It's Gwyneth Paltrow and Bill Murray returning. And, it is also, I like that phrase calling card that you used, because it's not just the iconography of the movie, but the exploration of all of the things that interest him. Yeah. That he feels like he's kind of circling all the wagons around his ideas and pouring them all into this big kind of micro epic, right? It's like a mini epic about a family over a period of time. Yeah. And it is set in one house where everyone has their rooms. I mean, it is like it's a doll's house or a diorama. There is stylistically metatextual, the framework, all of both the themes and the motifs that interest him are bubbling there in Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, but this is okay, lock in, look at these colors, look at this block text, literary print and these chapters, the music cues,
the magical realism, really, of like a different world that is
the
a
pastel
world
constructed world that
we
he builds.
recognize, but also, it's like 70s New York, but it's also 2001. And it's a 70s New York that only really existed in the minds of like a kid from Houston or a kid from Atlanta who was like, oh, maybe there is, like, maybe Salinger's New York could be real. Or at least in the confines of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, Salinger, obviously, Franny and Zoe is like the key influence on this film, and he pulls a lot from those pair of stories that Salinger wrote. But then there's also a lot of Mrs. Basil E. Frankenweiler, like
Have you guys read this yet?
Not with Alice.
This
as
like,
a kid, I read it.
I mean, that's like core text for me. Claudia was on the list of girls' names for us. Like that
Oh,
is,
interesting.
yeah, like unreal.
Yeah, I mean, so from the Mixed Up Files, that book, the whole vibe of that book is imbued in the first 40 minutes of this movie. Most of the narration, most of the young Tenenbaums portraiture of these three child geniuses.
Including literally like that Margot and Richie run away to. It's a different museum. And they don't keep their money in the violin case as they do in the book. But I always thought that was just a really useful life lesson.
Yes. And that's the thing that this movie does, is that it makes manifest these literary and film influences that are clearly so important to him. You've got 70s American cinema, and you've also got 60s French New Wave.
Yeah.
And these two, like the emotionality and the cutting style of the French movies, and then the sort of like emotional rawness of the 70s movies. I would not describe the last 5 or 6 Wes movies as emotionally raw. They are emotional.
Yeah.
But there is like a kind of violence in this movie. There's like an anger and even like a viscerality with the famous Richie Tenenbaum scene that he's never really gone back to. Like, you can feel a little bit of some of that rage and despair in Darjeeling. You can feel a lot of sadness in these last few movies in Asteroid City, like a real melancholy in those movies.
You walked out of oh my gosh, what's the most recent one's name?
Phoenician Scheme,
saying this is like a pretty angry, and like
it's a violent movie, Phoenician Scheme, for sure. And it's a different kind of violence, but you're right, that this most recent movie reminded me, I think, of that feeling of like, ooh, Wes is like, something's pissed him off. Something's really gotten under his skin. And returning to this movie for the first time in about 5 years last night, it was nice to go back to that time when he was in a little bit of his angry young man phase. And people don't really think of Tenenbaums that way because of the Halloween costume aspect that you're describing.
Right.
You know, Richie's headband and Gwyneth Paltrow's haircut and the overcoat and those perfect needle drops.
The fur coat. I mean, like, I was this close to pulling up the Lacoste dresses like last night while watching, and I was like, no, I'm older. I've moved past this. We've memed this.
There's nothing wrong with going back to it. But I think that him kind of finding a way to take those film influences that he loves, all these books that he loves so much, and also just what you can feel is the mind of an imaginative Texan trying to wish himself away from where he's been born and what he's stuck into, you know?
Which I, responded to. This movie came out when I was a senior in high school, So I was like, oh, like I too long for this place that did not ever exist, right? That is, imagination and is come from like reading a lot of books and watching a lot of movies and thinking like, oh, there could be a world where everyone is messed up, but in a very stylish and literary way.
Yes, they're literally moving in slow motion, elegantly, sadly. Yeah, I think like the 345th Street Y and the public archives and all of these places that seem like real places that are inspired by real places. He takes this to kind of like an epic conclusion, I find, in The Life Aquatic, where he's inventing creatures literally undersea. But that very slight turn of the dial of creativity inside an otherwise realistic emotional world, it felt pretty novel. There's not, you can say, oh, this is kind of like Hal Ashby movies, or this is kind of like Truffaut movies, but his sensibility, especially if you had not caught up to Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, it's like this film kind of got like brought in from another planet.
Right.
And it is interesting because it is a template setter, but it is not, there's nothing that quite matches this very specific energy that this movie has.
Right. Because it's, in rewatching it after having spent more time, I would say, in the last few years watching all the new stuff and some of the more recent stuff, it is both, as you said, an epic, but like very modest. It's the most grounded of the movies. It is a family, and they have some pretty like far-flung and unusual problems, but it is about a group of people coming back to one house.
Yep.
And their connections are pretty primal and understandable, with maybe the exception of Richie and Margot. But, it's so you're not underwater, right? You're not on a train in India. You're not like in, exploring fascism in the 40s at like a beautiful pink hotel. So there is something that is, I think, like approachable sounds kind of reductive, but the Flights of Fancy are built upon something like very, very simple, honestly, and just a dad and some kids.
So this is not quite the earliest movie on our list. It's very close to being the first released movie.
Right.
It's the second earliest movie. And one of the things that I think is interesting about that is that this is still technically a 21st century movie, but all of those things that you're describing is like, this is kind of the ultimate 21st century movie about the 20th century. So like the dissolution of the family unit in America is such a huge theme of all American art, basically from the establishment of the suburbs all the way through the 2000s, right? Like that is something that the great novelists, filmmakers, they're constantly exploring and re-exploring these ideas. Wes, consumed by the idea of the father figure. Every single one of his movies is about a father figure in one way or another. The absence of them, the presence of them, the domineering nature, the loss, whatever it might be. And this is like an all-time father figure movie with an all-time father figure performance. And, the men of the 20th and 21st century are still getting over this feeling. But as opposed to, say, in the Grand Budapest Hotel, where Ray finds his character as kind of a stand-in father figure, or in Moonrise Kingdom, where you've got these kids kind of wandering around who don't are trying to escape the idea of parenthood. Front and center in the movie is Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
and we didn't plan for Gene Hackman to pass away this year.
Yeah,
but I'm quite happy that we can at least like honor his career on this list, because he's one of our favorite actors, and this is the second to last movie that he made, and he reportedly did not enjoy his experience making this movie. And he and Wes did not see eye to eye. I was watching the Criterion edition of this movie last night, and there's a very short interview with Gene Hackman, contemporaneous to the production of the movie. Less than 3 minutes. And he was like smiling his way through it. But
it's like shades of Dustin Hoffman in the Megalopolis documentary.
Yeah, very, very much. Very much. Like, I'm turning it on for you for as long as I possibly can. But he said something that I don't think I had heard before, which is that Wes approached him, I guess after the success of Rushmore, and said, I'm writing something for you.
Right.
And Gene Hackman said, do not write something for me. I do not like to have things written for me. I like to receive something and bring myself to it.
Yeah.
And then Wes wrote it for him anyway. And he accepted it, because it's obviously the part of Royal Tenenbaum is a great star part. It's a great movie performance. You can see why he couldn't resist taking it on. But you can see he brings like a little bit of agitation to the constructed world of Wes Anderson.
Yeah, which is the magic of the performance and of this movie, because every other father figure in his movies, maybe with the exception of Benicio del Toro in Phoenician Scheme, is playing the Anderson deadpan, right? Is like has the anti-charisma. And the tension and the theme of this movie, and in a lot of ways, is about Gene Hackman is doing the Anderson lines, and he is in the frame where he's supposed to be, but it's still just like affable, irresistible, animated Gene Hackman.
Yes.
And like, it does seem that that's the intention. And everybody else really does stay in line, which is amazing. When we saw One Battle After Another, something that PTA said in the Q&A was about how Benicio del Toro said, he asked that just make sure I don't pick up anyone else's energy. That's what I need.
Yes. That Leo's character has like is a live wire.
Right.
And Benicio wants to remain calm.
But I think, that is a hard thing for actor to do, especially when you have such a charismatic performance. And none of the other actors in Tenenbaums pick up the energy.
It's so true.
They stay really still, but it's again, he is supposed to be irresistible.
I would say because of the zaniness of the movie, the Grand Budapest Hotel Finds performance it's not the same level of affability is a good word for it, that Hackman's character, that sort of like mischievous old codger vibe that he's giving. But it's very rare. I mean, think of Tom Hanks in Asteroid City. Like, he is so buttoned up and so drained of his native charisma in that movie. And Hackman won't allow it. And that resistance actually, I think, is part of what makes this such a good performance, because it's such a well-written character who, like, is a bastard. Like, he is a motherfucker. And he's doing a lot of things that are just terrible. As a parent, as a man, he lies, he cheats, he's been in prison, he's been stabbed because of his, felching on deals. And he's not someone you should be rooting for.
No.
And you're like rooting for his kids to forgive him in this movie because you want to see Gene Hackman happy. And that's a very special thing. I don't think that there should be more Titanic actors who should be able to tell Wes Anderson, like, I'm going to do my version and not do your acting style. But we're lucky to have gotten this one.
Do you is that the impression that you got?
It
that
is.
He was like, no, I'm doing it my way?
That's just my read. That that they, they kind of brokered a middle ground between the tightness that Anderson is looking for in the performance style, which I would say usually works for his movies. But think of the myriad wildly charismatic actors whose most subdued performances come in his movies. Yeah. Whereas Hackman, think of like Hackman and Stiller in the game room together when they pull the light and they're facing off of each other, and the way that they are exploding at each other. You don't see that very much in his movies. Yeah. That's very rare. And that's obviously two very combustible actors. But I really, really love the energy that he brings to this movie and how different it feels from all of the other movies, because everything else in the movie, the costuming, the color palette, the score that Mark Mothersbaugh composes, the needle drops, this whole old York City kind of feeling that we have watching the movie, it's all pretty familiar to the other stuff. It all matches up. But Royal is so different that it elevates the movie in a big way. There's a lot of other things that I really like about this movie. I mean, one thing that I wrote down that I hope you will appreciate, near the end of the film, there's this panoramic shot where the camera is moving after Eli's car crash.
Right, and up the windows and down the windows. Yes. And it kind of mirrors the opening Hey Jude montage.
But he's capturing every single character in his movie in that sequence as the camera's moving. Now, it's a very showy kind of move. Sure, it's a real, like, this is my first big boy movie kind of move. But it felt like what a lot of his movies feel like, which is reading a Richard Scarry book with a magnifying glass.
Yeah. It's a,
you know what I mean?
And like, time of life comp for sure.
But like when you open a Richard Scarry book, there's 30 characters and they're all doing something different.
That's true. Except for the moms who all have to be in the kitchen. We could update some of those.
We're not talking about the native patriarchy present in the Scarry literature. We're talking about the visual palette.
Saying. We ripped out the Mother's Work is Never Done chapter.
Oh, geez. Is that a chapter in a Richard Scarry book?
In What Do People Do All Day, which is one of, a great question and a great title for a book.
What do they do?
That's what moms do.
Yeah, they podcast. That's what moms do. But that feeling of like when you're a kid and you open a book like that and there's a million things to look at, and how do you decide what to look at? And his job as a filmmaker is to
move the camera. Yeah.
Move the camera and figure out which guy to go to. And I kind of like him discovering his style. I like watching him figure out how to spend money and see how to expand the idea of what a Wes Anderson movie can be. So that's one thing. I mean, is this his best collection of needle drop moments? Was something I wanted to ask you.
His most memorable. Mm-hmm. And I do think that I don't hear these days without thinking of Margot getting off of the Green Line bus. Mm-hmm. And some of it is, when do you encounter this music in your life? And did I hear a lot of these songs for the first time in this movie? I did. Mm-hmm.
I think that's true for many of his fans.
Sure. But then also the ones that you do know. I mean, me and Julio, every single time I think of the three of them on the tricycles. Mm-hmm. It's just, they're used so beautifully and intentionally. Like, they are part of the fabric of the movie in a even more than a Scorsese way. They are like almost diegetic.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true of everyone. The Van Morrison song that closes the film as well. That you're right, there is a kind of literalization, the same way that Ooh La La and Rushmore similarly kind of feels like it is announcing the theme of the movie via pop music. He doesn't do this nearly as much as he used to. He's kind of become much more restrained with a lot of this stuff. He still has his like the Kinks, the band, are one of his kinks. Like he always like to find a place for the Kinks. But in this movie, he gives you both, right?
Right.
Like he gives you slightly more obscure Rolling Stone song, and then he gives you a Ruby Tuesday.
Right. As she is saying, like, I think we just need to be secretly in love with each other.
Yes.
You know, it is like, and then goodbye, Ruby Tuesday.
Yes.
Hiss. Like, okay, yeah.
But then also he gives you 2 very obscure Bob Dylan songs.
Yeah.
He gives you Wigwam, which then kind of became a well-known song, I think, in the aftermath of its usage in this. And then the theme from Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid in that amazing, that's just like a wordless acoustic guitar composition. And so, it's just like one of those things where some filmmakers just have this tool. They can get away with obviousness, and they can also become vehicles for discovery, for music taste, for finding new genres of music that you otherwise might not have liked if they weren't matched with his imagery. So I think this is probably the most classic version of that. Even Judy as a Punk, while racing in the go-karts too with the Ramones, like, and him blending all these different styles the same way he's blending all these cinematic styles. There's just not a huge history of classic filmmakers who can artfully blend comedy and not drama, but sadness.
Yeah.
That's a very sticky thing to do. And I was trying to think of the filmmakers in my life that I have loved who can do it. And it's like, it's James L. Brooks. It's Woody Allen. It's Billy Wilder. Ernst Lubitsch sometimes. I'm sure there are many more.
Noah Baumbach.
Definitely Noah Baumbach. And obviously they have been collaborators and friends. And I did write down The Squid and the Whale as kind of like a companion film to this film. But it's a hard thing to do. To capture not just sincerity, but like that ache that people have and still making you laugh.
Right.
And this is near the top for me in terms of his slate of films too, that's able to do that.
Yeah. Do you think some of that is generational for us? Because this is one that for you and me is like, like the Bible. It's in and then there is a school of people who have just never really gotten on the Wes Anderson train, or they admire it formally.
I mean, I'm sure this whole list is informed by how old we are, right?
I know, but like the Wes Anderson thing in particular, and like that particular brand of sadness, does feel like it came also to us at the moment. I mean, he is slightly older than us, but like of a generation, and
I was
expressing
15 when Bottle Rocket came out. So
exactly.
I mean, I think you and I both grew up in a house that our dad didn't live in.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that's if there's a movie like that that has that scope of emotionality, like that is very powerful.
And also has Gwyneth Paltrow in just incredible.
Huge for you.
Should I get into that eyeliner? I was like, should I get a bob?
It's heavy.
I know.
She's wearing a lot of it.
I know. I was given some eyeliner recently.
Really?
I haven't tried it. By Victoria Beckham Makeup. Thank you so much.
I thought you were just going to stop after Beckham. That would have been amazing. You didn't stop talking after Beckham.
I don't think Posh knows me personally, though. I welcome
you never know.
Any overtures. But
this podcast is getting big. You never know. You think the Beckhams are sitting at home quietly listening to our review of Black Bag, thinking, I quite like this film as well.
David makes honey now, so really anything's possible.
And you're a consumer of items in jars, as we know.
Yeah, that look. Do we think it's a wig, Gwyneth Paltrow?
I don't.
You don't. You think it is, but I guess you're just getting like daily touch-ups. I don't either, but it is really hard to maintain that level of
that sharpness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is that's quite a line.
I know.
She has.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was just snipped every day.
I'm sure.
It's great to have a makeup and hair
department. But it looks great. I don't think I could pull it off, but
I am covetous of Luke Wilson's hair in this film.
Before or after the
he looks great with a shaved head. But his long hair and beard. Speaking of the hiding, that is the ultimate hide.
And the would you?
Well, I want to talk to you about this.
Okay,
so great. I don't know. I'm sure you don't know about this because I assume you did not watch this. But on the Ringer Fantasy Football Draft that I participated in August when I was supposed to be on vacation,
I think I was texting you. I was somewhere cool, and you were doing fantasy football.
I was sitting with Joe House and Van.
Oh, I think I was like, but I remember being like, I think you're drafting right now.
Yes, you did. You did text me during that. One of the clever things that the fantasy guys came up with was that there's a punishment, and the punishment for the loser of the fantasy football league, the person who comes in last place, which could definitely be me, is that the punishments are individuated.
Oh, okay.
And so you can draft your punishment. So there was a list of 15 available punishments, and one of your draft picks would be what punishment you would get. Okay. Cousin Sal, for example, drafted having to get an ear pierced.
Wow. Live on camera?
I don't know if that was stipulated, but they should for the pod. I think I was the first person to draft a punishment because the punishment, and some of these were extremely benign and some of them were deeply malignant, was to podcast while wearing a headband, but never address it. And that's what I chose. Can your host address it? You can do whatever you like. You're free to.
I'll just laugh the whole time.
But if, in fact, I do finish in last, and I'm 0 for 1. I lost to Craig Horlbeck in the first week.
Okay.
And I'm essentially tied with Bill Simmons going into a night with 2 Monday Night Football games.
Okay.
And we both have 2 players left to play. So it's a showdown. So I could be 0-2.
Oh, okay.
And if I'm 0-2, it's getting away from me pretty quick. And if I lose this league, which is possible, I had the 10th pick and I'm the least informed person about football who was on the entire draft, I will wear the Richie Tenenbaum headband.
Okay.
That is going to be, that's a long-winded way of saying that maybe I'll wear the whole outfit. Maybe I'll wear the tan suit with the tennis polo and the big brown glasses.
I'm open to it. And then your beard you're working on it.
Through.
The hair will be sort of, you going to get it long or you'll
maybe
just
I'll
do
wear
what
a
you
wig.
can. Okay. I mean,
could I do an entire pod about like Wicked for Good? What dressed as Richie Tenenbaum? I think I could.
I think I would enjoy it, you know?
I know. Richie is so great. You know, Luke Wilson, who Chris Ryan once famously said could have been Harrison Ford.
As I was watching, I was like, was this the podcast where he said? And it's not because he did.
Bill wasn't on that one.
Chris and Andy did Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes, there's a very good episode of that show that Chris and Andy did. Everybody's performance in this movie is good and a little bit different from what they're best at, with the exception of Luke's brother, Owen.
Yeah.
I made a list of 10 things that I love about this movie that I think makes it worthy.
Right.
And number 6 is just Eli Cash.
Yeah.
who I think is a perfect movie character. And so funny and so sad. You know, kind of the embodiment of the strain of this movie, and a ridiculous.
Yeah.
A complete buffoon.
Him just hiding in the closet in a cowboy hat and
his underwear.
Yeah. Looks great.
Well, he thinks
really
he's being
funny.
alluring or something.
I know,
you know?
It's really funny.
Wilson, I miss this Owen Wilson. I miss this guy.
Sure, we all do.
I don't totally know what happened. I know there's a lot of speculation about what happened. Obviously, he's fine personally, physically, but what he was interested in doing and the kinds of movies and stories that he was telling and what he and Wes were writing together, I wish they'd write another movie together, because I can feel his sense of humor in this movie that is a little different from when he's teaming up with Roman Coppola or Noah Baumbach or any of his other co-writers. There's a madcap sensibility that Owen Wilson brings to the movies that I really, really enjoy. And he's hilarious in this movie. And this idea, I don't know that I had necessarily an exact one-to-one with this, but that idea of maybe it was my family, because I had a big family, but this idea of like people are always coming over to your house.
Yeah.
Because they want to be
longing to be a part of
that.
I mean, I was an only child, so I definitely got that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very
I didn't send anyone my college grades.
No.
But
I hope no one saw them. That was kind of my hope.
They don't matter. Once you get into college,
they don't.
Just a tip to all you kids out there. Don't fail out. Don't lose your scholarship.
Yeah, don't fail out.
Otherwise, who cares?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We're on the same page there. There are parents at home right now who are paying $180,000 a year for college. We're like, shut the fuck up, Amanda.
That's a question at this point. Like, do we really, what's the worth? But, that's okay.
Do you think kids should not go to college?
No, I think if you can, I loved college.
Okay.
So if you have the opportunity and it's
that's where you discovered alcohol.
That's true. I don't know if that's where I discovered it. It's just where I really, primed my taste.
The only other sequence that really jumped out to me as both more clever and more sad than I had remembered was the Raleigh and Richie discovering Margot's journey through romance.
Sure.
Her various romantic escapades, her previous marriage, all the men that she's found before.
Yeah.
Like, there's an incredible level of it kind of becomes like an active satire at that point when it's going on, but it's also just like very, very funny and beautiful.
With Dudley also sitting there.
Yes.
His bucket.
Shout out to Dudley, just another great character.
Dudley's World. I had forgotten the name
all
of the
book covers are fantastic.
all of it is so good.
Yeah. So, I mean, all of this stuff put in a blender and you get an amazing movie. Plus you get, I don't know, like 10 of the funniest lines of the century.
Yeah.
You've got, this is my adopted daughter, Margot.
Sure.
You've got, you used to be a genius. You got heartbreaking. I've had a tough year, Dad.
Yeah.
Really nice Ben Stiller, interesting actor. Like not always an actor with the most range, but there is like a wounded quality to him.
Yeah.
That when he lets go, he's very good in this.
On this rewatch, I was like, oh, this is more Chaz's movie than I remembered. They all kind of get their moments, but that and then in the ambulance.
Yeah, so he gets that incredibly sad moment.
And the smile from Gene Hackman it's really nice.
Yeah, and a movie too where a narrator helps and doesn't hurt. You know, like Alec Baldwin's reading of the sort of opening graphs of individual chapters of this story could have felt very mannered and phony. And somehow just works because it does give you that quality of reading a good book.
Right.
And that's very unusual. Usually when you're hearing a narrator,
you're like, you didn't have anything, or you're taping this together with voiceover after the fact. And no, it's embedded in. And also quotable in its own way.
Very much so. I'm very sorry for your loss. Your mother was a terribly attractive woman.
I think that one was when I was watching it last night and Zach like laughed from the other room and came in and sat down and was like, well, okay. This is the one that I use all the time.
You do this one then.
Yeah. Well, everyone knows Custer died at Little Bighorn. What this book presupposes is maybe he didn't.
Which is delivered whilst walking down a hallway and being interviewed because Eli is a world-famous author.
He's fake Cormac McCarthy. It's really funny.
Very, very good idea. Hell of a damn grave. Wish it were mine when we're sitting in front of a shot of a giant gravestone. And we haven't really said the name Danny Glover yet, but
who's so
Hackman and Glover, two old dogs. Going toe to toe in the kitchen scene where Glover's like, "Did you just call me Coltrane?" And Hackman's like, "No." That scene also is dynamite. And then to me, the most heartbreaking scene in the movie, which also feels like a little bit of an invention, but maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is near the end of the film, Royal takes Margot out for ice cream.
I'll have a butterscotch sundae, I guess.
Yes, and it seems like he's not just making up for lost time, but he's trying to do something.
Yeah.
He'd never done before. He never spent any individual time with his adopted daughter. And she is disassociated and depressed.
Right.
And she says, "You probably don't even know my middle name." And Royal says, "That's a trick question. You don't have one." And Margot very quickly says, "Helen." And Hackman, an incredible moment, says, "That was my mother's name." And Margot says, "I know it was."
Yeah.
And just a very economical, beautiful piece of writing. Two great actors.
Yes.
I love that scene. There's a lot of scenes like that in this movie.
I also like the payoff then or not the payoff, but like the coda to that when Margot's new play debuts. And it is just like a reenactment of
Levinson's in the Trees.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the kids, scenes that we've seen earlier. And they cut to the audience and everyone is still, except for Hackman, just like cracking up at his own character stand. And it's really nice.
It is really great. Let's talk about this movie's legacy just a little bit. So It did get an original screenplay Oscar nomination.
Okay.
It did not win. It was also nominated for a BAFTA and a WGA in that category. Hackman got a Globe nomination for comedy or musical.
Yeah.
If this were Wes Anderson's 10th movie instead of his 3rd, it would have 9 Golden Globe nominations.
Right.
But it's one of those ones that kind of like got everyone's attention.
Yes.
And then, not all of his films are warmly received by the institutions of awards bodies, but a lot of them are now, and it kind of woke a bunch of people up. And yeah, I mean, let's just go through the movies very quickly. So Life Aquatic comes after this in 3 years, Darjeeling 3 years later, Fantastic Mr. Fox 2 years later, Moonrise Kingdom 3 years later, Grand Budapest 2 years later, then Isle of Dogs, The French Dispatch of the Liberty, Kansas Evening Sun, Asteroid City, and The Phoenician Scheme. This is, as I said, the first movie that Scott Rudin produces for him. And Rudin produces for him all the way through 2018, essentially all the way up until the revelations about Scott Rudin's behavior as a producer. And this is like there are a handful of filmmakers that producer kind of grabbed
and propelled forward
and protected, and allowed to work in the way that they wanted to work. And, Wes Anderson was going to be successful regardless of whether or not somebody came along. But that is an incredible run of movies with a very defined style operating in its very own, very specific way that like over time was allowed to develop into success. So this is something that I'm kind of obsessed with on the show, as you know, where letting not just jet streaming young independent filmmakers directly into franchise films, but like letting them grow consistently and hoping that those filmmakers will like want to take incremental strides in terms of scope and creatively with the kinds of movies that they want to make. Because, Life Aquatic is a much bigger movie. It's a movie on the ocean.
Right.
It's a movie with all this puppetry and design. It's not a movie just set in a house like this film. This is like a logical step from the grounds of Rushmore.
I mean, it's a ship for a lot of it, but they go places on the ship.
Yes, they do go. I mean, there's like an island sequence. There's there's guns. There's all kinds of stuff happening in that next film.
There are BB guns in this.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about Chaz's BB in his hand.
Yeah.
Why not just have a very quick surgery to have that sucker taken out?
It's a really great point, but in the magical 70s, it's actually 2001 New York.
Mm-hmm.
They're not as uptight with their parenting. Or their medical intervention.
Would you shoot your son with a BB gun?
No, I would not.
Okay.
Would my sons shoot me with a BB gun? Like probably.
Pretty
right
likely,
now.
I would say. Yeah, might be maybe until like 18 or 19 they would think that's a good idea. And yeah, this is a darn special movie. Do you feel like we have found the right placement for this film?
No, but I think we're going to feel that way every single time from here on out. Like as we said, it's bangers all the way down this list.
This is number 12.
Yeah.
So 11 more. We've got to do 11 of these in 3.5 months.
We can do it. They're some of our favorite films of all time.
That is true.
It's going to be okay.
Recommended if you like.
Yeah. Wes Anderson movies?
I mean, every Wes Anderson movie. If you have seen every Wes Anderson movie except for this movie, you're a sociopath. That's a very odd choice. I wrote down Hannah and Her Sisters, which is a rare combination of that sadness and that comedy.
Right.
Terms of Endearment. Good one. James L. Brooks. Harold and Maude, certainly. The off-kilter approach to characterization and comedy.
And the 70s of it all, for sure.
And overcoats as well. And suicide attempts. I mean, there's a great many things that are, Harold and Maude is very much in the bloodstream of the Royal Tenenbaums. And Squid and the Whale. And I think Arrested Development is an interesting one. If you liked that sitcom about a crazy wealthy family, then there's definitely a lot to match this up with.
Right.
Am I going to wake up tomorrow and regret this not being Grand Budapest? Because I know I would never be able to get Moonrise, but I don't know if we fought enough about it being Grand Budapest.
You are, and I'm sure you'll feel that way. Okay. And I love Grand Budapest. Mm-hmm. But Grand Budapest does not exist. I mean, certainly in the scope of Hollywood, but just even ideologically, creatively, without the blueprint of Royal Tenenbaums.
So, one more question for you.
Yeah. Honor the thing,
I get it. Wait, speaking of that, it's September 15th right now when we're recording.
Okay.
It's starting to feel like the Paul Thomas Anderson year is happening, right? Where at the Academy Awards and maybe even at the box office, there will be this sense of like, if not now, when to honor this person.
Unless, it's actually, we'll talk about this later, but it's like a Shakespeare in Love versus Saving Private Ryan year.
100%.
It's starting. So
it is. But I mean.
Though I'm on the other side this time.
But the flip side of that is though, we could have this conversation for literally the next 6 months, but in this case, Hamnet is Saving Private Ryan and Shakespeare in Love.
Right, but
is one battle after another. You know, it's like Hamnets are, Chloe Zhao's already been honored.
Yeah.
PTA is not. But I bring this up because 2 years ago, Wes Anderson did in fact win an Academy Award for Henry Sugar.
Which was very good. But
a very good short film, but it felt like
give the man a big kid Oscar.
Right. He doesn't even have a screenplay Oscar.
Yeah.
And he's one of the signature American filmmakers of the last 25 years. No, there's no question about it. And Do you think he will ever have his moment? Because he does have so many detractors.
Right.
There are many people who listen to this show who don't get it.
Also going into, French Dispatch, Asteroid City, and Phoenician Scheme are kind of like a trilogy on their own with a lot of links to Tenenbaums, but and emotional in their own way, but way more like diorama, way more like how big can we build this dollhouse?
Tightly constructed, yes.
Yeah, and how many dollhouses can we like build around it?
Yes.
So
meta-explorational, I would say. So
they're not as open as Tenenbaums is.
Yeah, they feel a little suffocating to people who are not on the wavelength.
But to bring it back to PTA, we were talking about one battle after another, like after Licorice Pizza, and how much more I can appreciate Licorice Pizza now that I'm like, well, sometimes you do your character studies, or artists can do a lot of different things, especially artists at this level. So if he wants to do his little triptych, and then maybe he'll want to do something else, and maybe he won't. I think that he would need to be a little bit broader in order to really get the Academy back. But I don't know. It's Wes Anderson, it's Noah Baumbach, it's Greta Gerwig, like that. That our class, our faves, haven't had their Oscars yet.
Yeah,
I hope they'll get there.
Yeah, that it's normally okay because obviously we in some ways you don't want them to win because it's cooler because Stanley Kubrick never won. You know what I mean? Like all the greats never won. Hitchcock never won.
Right.
But
Tom Cruise, not yet.
Tom Cruise never won. But with someone like Wes, who is so clearly working in a very individual style, but in such a storied tradition of people who have been honored, like James L. Brooks, like Woody Allen.
Right.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm curious. Not that the Academy Awards would certify his career in any way, but he is the kind of filmmaker who is, he's a beacon of major independent cinema.
Right.
And
that's turning out so well right now. So
it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Clearly everyone wants to invest more in it.
Number 11 is coming up. I can't wait. I can't wait to rewatch number 11.
I don't remember what it is, and I just looked at the list.
I won't give you a single hint.
Hold on, I'm
extremely.
Oh yeah, now I remember what it is.
Yes.
Oh, it's a good one. It's like, what is it doing at number 11?
I feel very smart about how this is shaken out. Is something I'll say about it.
We are good at our jobs, which is making a list of our own opinions.
That is entirely true. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to our producer, Jack Sanders, for his work on this episode. We will be back later this week with a very special physical media extravaganza. See you then.